This week on the Punks on Pizza podcast, happy to bring you here a personal hero of mine, absolute legend to the Ontario punk community, author, photographer, journalist, done plenty of things outside of the world of music, but here we are today with the lead singer of Chachi on Acid, Mr. Colin Burrowes. How are you doing, sir?
I'm pretty good right now. I'm all right. Yeah. How about yourself?
Oh, just dandy. Just dandy, Colin. I'm doing all right, thank you. Doing just fine. All right, so I wanted to talk with you today, obviously, about your band.
I suppose. Yeah. I can do some of that.
All right, you know what? I'm a bit of a fan. I've got your items lined up here, 7 inches and the vinyl. Now, I want to get into some things I don't know. How did you begin? How did it all happen?
Wow. That was in 1991. Me and another fellow who didn't really go to school too much. We ended up just making music in his apartment. And I mean, really, I don't know. We started making really bad music. We started playing it out his window to people who would collect in the alley below his apartment, and from there, it took us fucking years to really get serious members in there. And it finally, by 4 years later, 1995 or something, we were finally starting to write real songs and make real music. But it was fucking noise for the first 4 years. There's a lot of embarrassing tapes floating around.
So this started over 30 years ago. Do you remember any of the venues that you first started getting your chops at?
I mean, for the first 3 or 4 years, we played like the local kin station, high school, like talent show, and that was pretty fun. But yeah, it was kind of a mess. But yeah, and then we finally started playing really one of our first real shows. See that record right behind you, right there with the very rare cover that you have?
This one right
That
here?
record, yeah, that record was actually recorded at our second show, and it was captured on. Why the fidelity is just so crisp and clear on that masterpiece is it came off like a VHS cassette that was captured at like our first show in London at the Vault, the Oxbox. That was a really cool classic venue that is now Shoppers Drug Mart in London, Ontario.
Oh.
Yeah, a lot of classic venues, and there's going to be more that are becoming Tim Hortons or Shoppers Drug Mart because so many closed down during the pandemic.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of the small bars have been taking a big hit over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Now, when you started, you went through, I mean, you've always gone through quite a lineup of different members. When do you think was the peak lineup and why?
Actually, the peak lineup for me took like almost 30 years to put together. It was the one that we were playing with from 2016 or 2017 until I think the last show we played was your Punks on Pizza in Peterborough in 2019. Was that?
That was the date. That was the last show, eh?
Yeah, yeah. And then we decided to take a break, and I didn't know whether I'd feel like playing again ever. And I think that's a plus side of the pandemic. I was able to sit down and go, what things do I miss? And playing shows was one of them. So there'll probably be some stuff coming up. Because there was a lot. I enjoyed the pandemic in a lot of ways. I'm not saying I enjoyed, people dying or getting COVID or any of that. I like the I'm not a go out and party type guy. So I liked kind of the solitude I was able to have without people telling me I should go out. So yeah, but there was a few things I realized I did miss, but I really don't want to go out and do a Cha-Cha on Acid performance until people are comfortable with each other again, because as you know, we get right in close with our audience, and if it's going to not be comfortable, I mean, I don't know how I feel about it right now. So, but it's something that's important at one of our shows. There's that lack of space between audience and band.
For sure. And I wanted to ask you about that. You say, being an introverted guy, I wanted to know, what is it about hitting the stage? What releases the beast, so to speak, that creates the frontman that we see in Cha-Cha on Acid?
I don't know, because I mean, yeah, in the rest of my life, I like space. That's the one area where I'm like, yeah, I like just to be up close and overly personal. So I don't know, like I can't figure that out. It's baffling.
How long did that take to set in for you? Like, I know there's a story about Iggy Pop saying he didn't really start bopping around until they were in studio, and it was a way to muster up the band. Was there a moment for you where you realized you could get away with this, or that you wanted to actually do this?
I think there was a point. It was around. Well, we performed in 1995, and I was not too connected to the audience. And then there was a show in March of, right at the beginning of March in 1996, and we were, I don't know, really nervous about it, and so we were trying to make up for that, just being clowns or whatever, and like my clothes came off and all that sort of stuff. And then I noticed, as it was a persona to hide behind. So I guess, I mean, to answer your question before. It's kind of easier to be that person there than to be myself, the introvert. Nib Arcola is kind of me and kind of a character that I put out there.
That was another thing I wanted to get to you about. Look at these segues, beautiful. Now the band's names, I know you had Nib Arcola. The other guys had some pseudonyms as well. Was that a Ramones influence at all to come?
Yeah, and right now with Scott Baio being like known for his Trump supporting, we don't like to admit it, but it was Chachi Arcola was his last name on Happy Days, so that's where the Arcola came from. Yeah, and yeah, I guess we were like any other punk band. It was fun to make up your own moniker and just be someone else in that. So.
Back in the day, were there any extensive tours that you did at all throughout Ontario or Canada? Any trips to the States?
We've done a few trips to the States. Nothing extensive. Over the years, we've played Cleveland a few times, Detroit. We did a tour of the Midwest. So we did like Chicago. I don't even know right now. We got as far as Iowa and Indiana. Logansport, Indiana was an amazing place. So that's a rock and roll city.
See, now that sounds rather extensive once you list them all off, doesn't it?
Expensive?
Extensive.
Oh, kind of, but they were over a period of time. Like we did a weekend tour here and a weekend tour there, and then our Midwest tour was 10 days or something, and they were all spread out.
Where did you get from sorry.
We go play Port Huron every now and again. It's right across the border from Sarnia, and it's got this awesome little house, Schwank Soundstead. It's a studio too, and it's right in a neighborhood, but it's one of their oldest venues. So I love that place, and yeah, they can have a shout out. So.
What do you know you're going to get from an American show that you don't get in Canada?
A good response. Yeah, there is a few cities where they actually like us there.
Now, see, I love you guys. I love what you've done. And when I saw you in playing Belleville at the Bell Pub originally for the first time in 2016, you were on a lineup full of bands. I was on the lineup with my band, but none of them showed after I hitchhiked out there.
I remember.
You were playing there with your young lad. And from what I remember, it was the only band with a confrontational lead singer because every other band was stuck behind a guitar. And so you stood out to me immediately. And then people were like, oh, they've been around since, the early 90s. And I was like, I can't believe I never heard of them.
You know what? I'm thinking of your story there, hitchhiking there all by yourself. The rest of your band didn't show up. Back in like 1992 or 93, our first show would have been on a set with Fugazi. We got added late. The promoter said, "Yeah, you guys can play in this spot." I got there. No other member got there, and I mean, we suck so bad. It's probably best that we didn't go on before, you know, a lineup that included Fugazi. But I mean, on the other hand, that would have been fucking awesome.
Oh, for sure. You didn't go up solo and do a cover of Family Man for the crowd?
No, I didn't. I was not that profoundly poignant at that time. I I mean that would be a cover, and we could not do a cover at that time. We couldn't even play Wild Thing or anything like that that every other band would do. We we couldn't play it when we started for the first 4 years.
Was there ever an era where you were trying out an instrument?
Yeah, I tried out bass. I had dreams of playing bass when I was a kid, and my parents bought me a bass. I never did anything remotely good with it, but I sold it to a guy who now makes his living being Paul McCartney in Beatles tribute bands, and he makes a living doing that. So really, I think somehow my need to play bass became part of the Beatles legend.
I mean, that could have been you.
Yeah, I could have been pretending to be Paul McCartney. Like, I mean, in the whole, you know, Kevin Bacon, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, that somehow puts me almost right beside Paul McCartney, right?
I put you up there with John Lennon.
I kind of like that. I think. You
I
know,
mean, it's
I,
better
I,
than the
I've heard
Judy
some
Allen
bad things
comparison.
about him, but I mean, his songs are great.
I was gonna say, I know it's better than the Gigi Allen comparison, which I know you can't stand. I think you're doomed once you get naked on stage for that
I
one.
I know. I mean, and yeah, yeah, I guess.
Now I remember from that first show I saw you were talking about playing with Dayglow abortions, and I believe you said we blew them off stage. I was wondering if you could recount playing with Dayglow, or even if you did, and that wasn't just something you said.
um, we have we
Uh,
played a festival in London, Ontario with them. I probably did say that we blew them off stage, but you know, we probably didn't. It's easy to claim. Once you get the microphone in hand, you can create any truth you want. You know, you can make your own truth and become president when you've got a microphone.
Now, you have quite a way of banter with the audience. Do you liken that to stand-up comedy at all?
um, yeah, I guess I do. Um, I don't think I would do well as a stand-up comedian because I'd have to admit that I'm up there alone, kind of. And I, even when I'm doing that sort of stand-up comedian stuff with the band, I can think that, I'm not up here alone. And it goes back to that introverted uh, self.
There's security in the band.
Yeah, yeah. They're my, they're, they've got my back. They've got my ass, whatever.
Now, you talk about growing up wanting to play bass, and then your son picks up the bass and joins the band. When did he pick up the bass, and when did you decide to let him in on the universe of Chachi on acid?
I think he picked it up at about 11 years old, and I'm doing some math. I think he was, shit. I'm pretty good at math. I'm just trying to remember the years. Um, I think he was, maybe he was 12 when he picked it up, and he was in the band by about 13 or 14, and playing all those grubby bars and all that. He used to have to sit like, yeah, yeah. Couldn't have been 15 yet. So yeah, he was 13, 14, and he was in some of the worst, most despicable bars in Southern Ontario.
Well, I know the Bell Pub was pretty dirty. It still has a piss trough. Any place that has a piss trough.
Yeah, that's,
But no,
and
I remember him sitting outside waiting for you guys to show up because he wasn't allowed in the bar until you guys showed up. And
yeah, that happened a few times, and there was a couple times when they were like, "He can play a set, but he can't be in here before, and he can't be here after. You just bring him in for the set, you get him the fuck out." But I mean, I can understand it. It's their liquor license and everything they're worried about. But yeah, it was pretty weird bringing my kid into some of those places.
were there any situations you recall, like in the early days, where you were like, fuck, shouldn't have done this?
No, actually, he was really good. Like, people offered him alcohol and stuff in some of them, and he was really good at saying no until he got old enough. But I guess that was like Tommy Stinson of the Replacements was really good at saying no until he got old enough too, and then he got really fucked up. So I hope my son didn't get that fucked up.
Now, you've said through the lockdown you've been missing playing. Has there been any writing for new Chachi on Acid material? I know you're working on a bunch of stuff, but has that been something you've been developing on?
I've got ideas floating around, but there's nothing really concrete. Um, but there's ideas there, and writing, I guess, it comes easy now. So I think I'll be able to get them out and that. But yeah, most of my writing is my new news website, woodstein.ca. And there's a hyphen between wood and steam.
Now, now, do all of the songs start from lyrics, or does somebody ever come in with a riff and do you build from there?
Most of the time, I find talented people who can do most of the riffs. I'm not the music guy. I've kind of formed partnerships with good writers, or I get most of them have been good to me. um, but I do most of the lyrics. The odd time someone else will have a fully written song or whatever. All, but I find it hard to sing lyrics how other people have written them. I always want to change them to suit myself. So a lot of the time it doesn't work when other people come in with the full song.
On that note, actually, I was curious about what the fascination is with various celebrities jerking themselves off. I do believe I've seen different titles for Jim Morrison and Lionel Richie pulling their puds. What's the deal with that, sir?
I I'm not even sure we or I. Wait a second. Jim Morrison. I didn't write those lyrics, but they were sent to me. Um, so there's 3 or 4 songs from our history that where the lyrics were written by a friend of mine he lived in California when he started writing them, and then he moved up to Oregon. His name is Fred Mertz or Brian Donnelly. Either one of those will work for him. But he wrote some of the lyrics for some of our classics, like "Recycle This, You Panty Waste," B-52s. So I just took on that persona of a hair fucker. I don't really fuck hair. And Jim Morrison was a cunt. Can I say that?
You can. You can. You just can't show one.
Yes. Yeah. So there's probably a couple. The spurt of the moment. He also wrote. So he's got a weird sense of humor that is overtly sexual, and I think the Lionel Richie thing just came from us adapting one of his song titles, or one of our song titles. I don't know. I think we were, this is some of those were like just different versions of another song, and we just were like, well, let's think of a new title, and it'll be a new song.
So Lionel Richie one day and Jim Morrison the next.
Yeah. So,
they're almost the same person.
Almost.
I was wondering if there was a story behind. It's one I've never seen you play live. It's one of my favorites. Harry going to Taco Bell. Is there a story behind Harry goes to Taco Bell?
There actually is, and you won't be able to guess what it is. Harry went to Taco Bell. He was like, Harry was our drummer. Actually, I really like that lineup too, around 97, 98. That would be, but he was the drummer, and he was supposed to be at practice at about I don't know, 11. He shows up at like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and because he had to drive from Listowel, where we live, to find a Taco Bell, and so he was like a few hours, 5 hours late from practice, because I think he woke up late anyways. And then so he was started off 2 hours late, and he ended up getting to practice 5 hours late. So yeah, there's a story. It's about Harry going to Taco Bell.
I figured there had to be something personal behind that.
He's a fine person though, but he did go to Taco Bell and left the others. And we had very important things to do as well that day. One of us probably had to go to McDonald's, and another one of us probably had to go to KFC. But we couldn't do that, could we? No, because he was at fucking Taco Bell.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Now, a lot of these are splits, and I wanted to ask you about that. Out of all the bands that you've recorded with, what was the greatest recording session that you recall with another band because of the times that were had?
No, we didn't record with those bands.
Oh, none of them, eh?
No, like they were all over the place. Like if you look at that Hated Principles one, they were down in California. Yeah, they recorded their own stuff, and then we put it together. And if you want to know what my favorite splits were, I really like. I'm looking at them right there. I like the Butch Holler one. That was actually done. We did our recording on the Butch Holler show, as you can see on YouTube, and then they mixed it for us, and then I put it out. But that Hated Principles one is pretty special to me, especially now. Cats, you froze a bit there. So was the sound still good? We the Hated Principle one. Cats, the singer guitarist, I believe. He died just over a year ago. He went to sleep and didn't wake up. And he was a pretty special guy in the California music scene, all over really. He was in punk rock since like 1980 or something.
Are they still active?
He was still active. He was doing a band called Organized Dorks, and they were still putting out. They were like a noise band, you know, putting out like 5,000 song cassettes and stuff like that. Yeah, he was still going, and then all of a sudden he wasn't.
Yeah.
Weird.
No, that's too bad. That's too bad.
I was really happy that we were able to work with them and do something with them.
It's a terrific split. I love that one. Like you're saying, it is great. The Butch Haller one that you brought up the episode, and I know you brought up on that episode about smelling like beer because you had just performed in Oshawa where myself and a couple friends had seen you, and you got covered in beer.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
being sober, somebody who's been off the drink for how many years now?
It's going to be 7 years in April, 2014. 8 years in April.
What now it seems it's not too much of a struggle at this point. You can be covered in beer, but I wonder if in the beginning was it ever tough to throw yourself into a situation where heavy drinking is the norm?
No. I'm a really good quitter. I quit smoking just like that. One day I woke up and was like, I don't want to smoke anymore. I don't like it. I don't know why I've been doing it, so I quit. I pretty much did the same thing with alcohol. I was like, yeah, that was one shitty experience too many. I'm done, and I, I, yeah, I did the same with the job last month. I guess
One shitty experience too many.
maybe. I mean, uh, and there was only one shitty experience. Yeah, so I'm just a really good quitter.
All right. Well, we've talked rock and roll. We're kind of going backwards, I guess. Rock and roll. Now we're getting into the drugs era. Acid, right there in the name of the band, Chachi on Acid. I'm just curious about when that became a part of your life.
Um, really, early '90s. I had it a few times. Um, I mean, it was never a huge part of my life. Um, I mean, I liked it, and I it still would. It's just, it's not something that's easy to work into your life when you're being a responsible parent and everything. So.
No, I hear you. You know, it's a day, and if you don't have a day to devote to it,
Yeah.
then not an option.
You lose your own days once you become a responsible parent. If you want to be an irresponsible parent, then yeah, go for it.
In the field of psychedelics, then, was there anything else that ever got you in your experimental days, or that you find kicking around?
Mushrooms, yeah, a little bit of mushroom tea it helps with the depression or whatever. Yeah, keeps keeps you on a solid stance to take on the world. That's no cliche. It's the truth.
Now, I know you're not a pot guy, but what do you think of in this day and age? Now you can just order weed and mushrooms online, and it shows up in your mailbox in a few days.
Yeah,
What do you think of where we're at?
I I'm okay with it. I mean, yeah, I've been I'm okay with it, and I mean, it's a bigger issue, but I think um more of the controlled substances should be maybe not mail order, but the, there they should be not or decriminalized, and you know, I think the world would be a better place if people who have, you know, issues with substance could get them in a positive way, not get them laced with fentanyl or something like that. If you being able to get drugs safely um, is a good thing. Like people are going to use it anyways. And
No, I agree 100% with that. I,
yeah,
I got no arguments there. This is a debate-free zone on the topic. But wanted to get out of the drugs now. Now we're going to talk sex. Now I know you're a married man. You have a gaggle of children. How many is there?
there's three. Is
Three.
that a gaggle?
Congratulations. Congratulations. Keeping that all together, man. And staying sane. And staying
Yep.
sane. I gotta wonder, aside from the odd fan biting the dick every now and then, are there any other breaks from the monogamous lifestyle there, Colin?
There's no real breaks from the monogamous lifestyle, and that incident is not a break from the monogamy. It's a reason to stay monogamous.
Now, I remember after that happened, the Spiderfest footage got posted, and I nearly shit my pants because I was like, "Oh fuck, was that filmed?" But fortunately, what was put up started after that incident. I've always wondered, does that footage exist?
No, and I'm glad it didn't because my one of my other sons filmed it. So that's not the type of thing you want your son filming.
I must admit, I wasn't aware of that until after. Until after.
Yeah, until after you did that. You did that.
That's true. I'm not denying it. I was hoping you had the footage. I wanted to put it in there. But I was wondering, being around, did you ever have any dealings with the old Punk Fest or with Spider?
No, actually, I didn't. We were supposed to play many times, and it was something that just never worked out. So I I I didn't even end up getting a chance to meet him in person.
How did you get involved with Spiderfest then, the year you played there?
What's his name? Jay. I can't remember his name right now. We were invited. Um, like we had been invited other times since the '90s. Like stuff. And there would have been some really cool lineups to play with at that. That's always been a really amazing show that it never. I don't know what it was scheduling or we were always breaking up or getting on each other's nerves or whatever. So,
Were there any, maybe even in the old days, were there ever any festivals that you had played with bands that you had looked up to, or maybe
yeah.
aren't around anymore that you feel deserve a mention?
We played my favorite one of those. I mean, it was kind of a mess. It wasn't run really well, but there was this Punk Town festival like TO like Toronto. Um, but we played there was a Woodstock version of it in Woodstock, Ontario, and we um we ended up playing with a lot of really cool bands. Like there was bands from around Chicago that we really loved, and like Apocalypse Hoboken, um, Oblivion, uh, Urban Decay. Um, they, I can I'm not recalling right now, but there's been quite a few at whatever shows we I don't know. But yeah, yeah. The answer is yes, and it's like that was 20 some years ago, and I'm not recalling right at this instant.
Fair enough. That's peeling back a few years. Haven't had enough coffee for that. Now, coffee, actually, back onto the drugs. Let's go to coffee. Now, coffee seems to be your drug of choice. If I associate you with any drug, even more so than acid, which is in the title of the band, it's coffee. What does coffee do for you? When did that enter your life? And how bad are you addicted?
I would say that entered my life at around the same time alcohol did, 12, and then I didn't quite get as hardcore into coffee as I did alcohol around that time. And but you know, as time went on, coffee became more and more important to me. It was just something we could me and like the urine sample, the Aaron Casey, the guy I started Shaw on Acid with in 1991. He was a big coffee drinker too, and it it was just something we could put on pots of and keep ourselves up all night writing, what we thought were songs which weren't. Um, and yeah, so and it just kept going and then as the lyrics to the song, um, uh, "Coffee is good food" say my when I had some issues in my early 20s in 1993, 1994. My shrink, my psychiatrist told me, you might want to cut back on that coffee. And I did for a little bit and then I didn't. And it's something I've kept on going with. Yeah, I
And
don't know.
how has the coffee mug tradition been going? I know every year you come out with a new coffee mug of you drinking coffee on the
Yeah.
coffee mug.
Oh, there's one. I don't know what year that is, but
Oh, that looks like an early one. I know they've got quite deep with the
yeah.
layering.
Oh, this is like the third year, I guess, because those other 2 years are on there. So yeah, it kept getting deeper. It started in well, the concert at the first one was Port Huron uh, in 2014. So it would have started Christmas 2014.
Now, 2014, how has the merch game kind of changed from when you started in the early 90s to now? What are you guys doing that you didn't do then, and what did you do then that you don't do now?
Um, okay. What did we do then? Um, we um hasn't changed at all. I've still got records. Um, we started off making a few cassettes or whatever, and yeah, then we moved to records pretty quick. And yeah, sometimes we have shirts, sometimes we don't. Um,
I know you're very hit or miss with the t-shirts.
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, and then I've got this moral dilemma now because I've been moving my whole lifestyle to like zero waste. And I'm like, do I want to press records anymore? Do I want to do any of that stuff? And I kind of don't. I mean, as you know, well, I don't really want to probably say, hey, go to Spotify because Spotify sucks. But I mean, we can always, but we, it doesn't matter. We say that anyways. We always have ads over there. So, but yeah, I can say go download it from our Bandcamp. And most people can get the stuff for free there if they want. So, um, I mean, not the hardcore, the hard stuff that you've got there. If you want those little tabs of acid, shot you. You've got to pay. But
What do you think about seeing these pop up on Discogs around the world? I've seen some copies selling in Spain. What do you think of when you see that?
I I think it's cool. Like, I mean, I remember when we like some of them, I remember shipping them there because none of the ones you have, those are all a few hundred copies minimum or whatever. But there's a couple of records that had like pressings of 100, and I when I see those come up, I remember exactly when I shipped them there and that, and so it's kind of interesting that way. But some of those have a lot more copies than 100. Yeah. So.
All right, tell me about the record, the 12-inch here, the LP. Now it's a compilation of a lot of the old recordings, right?
Sort of. I mean, it's actually in chronological order, and it might be my favorite recording overall. We went in with those 17 songs into the studio, and we recorded them in like three, 3.5 hours. Mixed them a couple weeks later in about the same time, and it was, back then we went into one of those analog studios. It was like a lot of fun. We were probably at that point more rehearsed than we had ever been. So we just went in and fucking buzzed through those. And so as they are on that piece of wax, they're in the chronological order that we recorded them that day. And I think it turned out being an awesome like way to capture that afternoon. It was.
Now I love the multicolored vinyl that it is. Why'd you decide to go that route over the just initial black?
It was it was a deal actually. We got a mix because they cut off the waste vinyl and then they put it all back in, and they give you deals on mixed vinyl at the pressing plant. So we just thought it would look way cooler than black vinyl at that time. And that was, now everything is on. It's hard to find black vinyl when you buy something new. But back then it was, there was more black vinyl and less other colors. So we just thought it would look cool.
Now, a lot of people struggle to actually get their stuff put on vinyl. Do you have any pointers, any recommendations on where to go to actually get your stuff put on wax?
I like United Record Pressing in Nashville. I mean, I think Jack White he's got Third Man now, so he does it all there. But it was the same studio or pressing plant that he was going to, and then all of a sudden he was like, things were slowing down for everyone else because his stuff was priority because he was selling whatever 50 billion copies, and we were selling maybe 1,000. But yeah, now he's moved on. But yeah, it's a quality plant, and it was in Nashville, and it was going. They used to press Johnny Cash's stuff back in the day, and all that. It's not like it was just a bunch of punks in their garage pressing.
Well, Nashville, you would figure that it would have some sort of country roots, but
and the is really good too. They were always like one of the cheapest ones, but it was good quality.
Now, when you were just pressing the small runs of the 7-inch, is back in the day, where did you go for those guys? Was it because I know
I've always used,
sorry?
I've always used United. It was
Okay, yeah. Because I know that we had a lot more record pressing plants at one point in time, like in Ontario. I know Toronto used to be a huge base for it, and then now it seems everybody has to go across the border for them.
I always did, Canadian.
That VHS that was recorded of the did you say the first show, or was it just an early show?
It was probably like our 6th or 7th show, but it was our first show where we tried.
Just count it. Just count it as the first show. Did you ever sell VHS copies of that?
No, we didn't. We have. I might have, but mine is now. I had like a second generation copy of it. So I didn't even have the master. It was recorded by a friend of the band, and like most for the first, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, most of us couldn't drive. So we'd always have to find someone to chauffeur us around or whatever. And then, yeah, I mean, I fixed that problem for myself, and our bass player, and once we started getting serious, he could drive, and we weren't really responsible until we had to start becoming responsible.
Fair enough.
Driving's important if you're in a kid.
Tell me about the lasting influence of Pete Shelley.
Oh, what Tyler's referring to right now is a zine that I wrote right after Pete Shelley died, and it was about Pete Shelley was one of those artists who meant a lot to me growing up. I had got a hold of like when I was about 10 years old or so. I got a hold of his solo album, Homo Sapien, and it just, the lyrics were different. I didn't understand them at the time. I was like 10, but I knew he was writing things differently than a lot of other artists at the time, and his use of pronouns was different. And then from there I got into the Buzzcocks, and the Buzzcocks were a pretty important band to me, even though I would not say, if you like the Buzzcocks, you're going to love Shot You on Acid, kids. But the Buzzcocks were one of my favorites of like the British punk rock scene and that sort of stuff. And yeah, so it kind of hit me when we all get upset when celebrities die, because I mean, for whatever reason, and that was one of the ones that hit me. And so I was writing by that time. I was in school, becoming a journalist, and I got in touch with a lot of other artists that I thought were probably influenced by the Buzzcocks, and most of them were, and they wrote little bits and pieces, gave me quotes about how it affected them, and I tossed it all together, and then it was up on the school website, spoke.ca, as an article for Conestoga College, and um, Microcosm Publishing. They're a Portland publishing company that does a lot of really good underground stuff, and you know, they said, "Hey, why don't you put it together with some personal anecdotes, and we'll print it as something a little longer." And came out as a zine that you can get everywhere, including Amazon, even though Microcosm Publishing does not support Amazon.
Have there been any other zines to come out?
I've been hoping so, but most of my writing time gets I give my journalism my all, and now I've got total control over that again because I'm doing wood-steam.ca, and I've got total control over what the articles I do there, and so I really like that. Total control is a good thing, kid.
Is there any plan for physical release from that website at all? Like, are you gonna put out any magazines or zines or?
I might because I am hoping. I think books will be my like where I end up. I've got ideas floating around, and even I can. The good thing about having your own website is you can see all the analytics behind it, and you know what people are liking. And there's some things I'm thinking, well, that's really getting popular really fast. I could expand on that because, there's nothing on this website that I would think, well, it'd be kind of a sellout move to write more of that because I didn't want it there. It's all on topics that I think are important or whatever. So if anything gets popular, I'll probably go, hey, I'm gonna fucking turn that into a book. And there is, I don't want to announce anything yet, but there is some. There's been talks with some people about writing books for them and that sort of thing. So
I was just gonna ask if there are any contributors to the website at all.
not yet, but once it's more established, I'm hoping to support my Patreon, kids. And yeah, because I would like to be able to pay people. I know doing good work takes a lot of time, and so I don't want to be taking good work from people and not you know rewarding them in some way. So, but yeah, right now support Patreon just because I need to eat.
I'll put all the links below in the description. Although I must admit, if you were on OnlyFans instead of Patreon, I'd probably be there tomorrow, Colin.
I can't do my nakedness anymore on OnlyFans because
that's the only place you can do it.
I thought they cut that out.
No, it was all a hoax. It was all a hoax.
Was it?
I think. I mean, so I've heard.
Do you have an OnlyFans? Oh.
I'll give you a free trial, bud. All right, now you're wearing the Jello Biafra shirt. You're talking about wanting to write a book. I'm thinking a couple people I know you're also fans of, Lydia Lunch, Henry Rollins. These are all people that, aside from their work in music, have also worked extensively in just solo speaking. gigs as well as writing books. Do you see yourself ever breaking free from the security of the band and speaking to public crowds in a similar fashion?
Maybe. I do have that whole you know introverted thing to break free of. But I mean, possibly. Like I know a lot of like even the people you listed. A lot of them are introverts, and you know, it's I don't know. I maybe just have to convince myself that I'm important enough. My ideas count.
Now, I mentioned these people. I know you're a fan of them. You're also just a fan in general. You go to tons of shows as well. I was wondering, have you ever had an experience meeting somebody you looked up to and they turned out to be a total dick?
Um, that's I haven't exactly because I tried not to meet people for that reason. Um, and then there's some people I've met or like met online since I had the opportunity to meet them, and I found out that they weren't dicks, and I kicked myself later on for not trying to make that contact. Like I mean, there's a lot of people I was nervous about meeting, and then I mean, most people are really cool. Like, I mean, I was talking to Joey Shithead earlier today for a article I'm doing, and he was just down to earth and really cool. And I so I kicked myself for being nervous when I was going to some shows and had the opportunity to walk up to people. And I know, I mean, and a lot of people don't understand it, but I know there's certain times not to approach people. Like if someone's just put on a really intense show, do not walk up to them the moment they walk off stage because they're still coming off of that. And I mean, I've ended up in altercations where I'm kicking myself because I ended up being a dick because people didn't give you that, you know, 3 or 4, 5 minutes to come down from a really intense performance. Um, so yeah, there's I guess I've been on both sides of that. Um,
I know you said you've been stewing about playing. When do you see yourself getting back out there and on it?
um, someone recently asked us if we'd be ready by the summer because there's um, some bands in who are going to be coming through London, and we might be able to get some good support slots. Um, so maybe by the summer. I don't know. I We haven't even been in the same room as each other, except me and my son. We're but me, I haven't talked to all the other guys since maybe since that Punks on Pizza show actually. Um, like because we were actually I think at one point talking about maybe writing some songs or whatever during this whole pandemic thing. So I went over to um, Jamie Norman, our guitarist, Norman Arcola, and see how we did that? His name's Jamie Norman. We called him Norman Arcola. That was, I don't know. Yeah. So, anyways, we haven't been in the same room. So.
Oh man, do you know if Pete's still managing Pantychrist, still working with them?
I believe so, but I don't know. And they were like right before the pandemic. Um, they were planning on touring out west. So, um, and I mean, if that happens, if they're able to do that after all this, maybe you'll be able to ask them in person. They'll probably be out there with.
Yeah, no, because I just saw their post about writing some stuffs, and I got thinking about you knowing that connection there with Pete.
Yeah.
He's a hilarious guy, by the way. Normally, drummers don't get to make too much of an impression when they're stuck behind the kit, but Pete is fucking hilarious.
Yeah. Pete's a very special man.
When did he come into the Chachi on Acid lineup?
Um, he started filling um in 2012. He didn't end up becoming, and he still says, I believe he still says he's not part of the band. But he's been the only drummer we've used since 2016. And he was playing from 2012 to 2014. He played a lot of shows with us. But yeah, he he's not a committer. I mean, since he joined the band, we have had exactly zero rehearsal. Because we don't. No, actually, that's not true. We did need to have, because there was problems with a couple songs. We did need to have at least one. But yeah, we're not really a rehearsal based band anymore. We will be if we actually write some new stuff, because we'll want to play it right. But in some ways, we do that kind of. We're one of those bands that's just playing our old top 40 hits. So I would like, because of that, I'd like to write some new stuff, but whatever. It's just fun performing.
I mean, how long until the next kid steps into the drum set?
Steps into the drum. You know what? Even though Pete is not, or says he's not a member, I don't know whether I really like that last lineup, and I don't know whether I'd want to replace any of them. So it would probably be over if any of them say no.
He plays with the band. He's just not an Arcola.
He is an Arcola. He's celery Arcola. He's the only Arcola who says he's not part of the band.
Have you got any other book writing projects in the works? I know, like you went to school for journalism. Have you been covering anything? Have you got any projects on the go?
I'm constantly writing. I'm writing about roller derby teams getting back on their feet. I'm writing about a new Stratford Pride community center that is going to be offering supports for LGBTQ plus community members out here. I'm writing about that Joey Shithead as a politician stuff. that I was interviewing him about today. I'm writing about Beaver Slap. I'm going to be writing about them and what they're doing or not doing or their other bands. And then I'm writing about like I'm an issues-based writer. I'm going to be writing about homelessness and housing in this area, and then I'm going to have there's a couple of those elections, and I don't I, hmm, yeah I'm going to be writing about a lot of stuff. I would hmm, I'm just going to say something that I'm not going to say, so that's
Are you
okay.
putting this all up through the website?
Yeah, it all. You should have a look at the website and then pay me. Fuck you to
I
pay
saw
me.
the roller derby headline on there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's all up there. You scroll down and there's a lot of writing on there. Apparently, in the last little while, I'd put 27,000 words up there.
right now, out of like this whole process, my least favorite part of the whole gig is editing. I gotta wonder, as far as the creative process and getting your stuff out there, what's the bitch of the bunch to overcome for you?
Um, well, uh, my editing process is different than what you've got to do with this sort of like you're putting it up as a video. I I think it's a lot easier to edit words and get them smoothed out than it can be sometimes. Although I mean this is sort of straightforward. I've edited movies before, and they can be a really real pain in the ass, especially when things are not fitting together and you didn't get enough coverage and you've got nothing else to go to, and so and the sound sucks. If you're
No,
making
but,
a
I mean, aside from editing, like for example, the bands trying to get everybody together in the same room, that was the hardest thing to overcome in pretty much all my first band for sure. And as far as writing goes, maybe trying to find a physical publisher to put those out. What are some of the roadblocks that you are a struggle to overcome, whereas actually creating the thing comes easy?
okay, well, see, thanks to Celery Arcola, we realized you don't need to, except for a concert, you don't need to get everyone in the same room because you don't need to rehearse. People, like, how many times did you see us?
Four, three or four?
And did you know that we were a band that hadn't rehearsed in years,
No,
other than when we were telling you?
tighter than a nun's breeches.
Exactly. So just don't worry about the practicing. I believe it's um, Malcolm Gladwell. He wrote a book about how people 10,000 hours in you become an expert or whatever. He never met Shot You on Acid, where we became experts in the music field, 4 hours in to our rehearsal. I don't, I don't know. What do you want to be?
You're doing great, Colin. You're doing great. Tell me about Butch Haller. Getting to play with Butch Haller and doing the Butch Haller show. What was that like for you?
That was a highlight. I mean, for a 97-year-old man, I well, the thing is, he's so good at what he does, he can maintain. Like I met him in 2017, and he was a healthy 97-year-old man. I just interviewed him again. You can see that on my website, Woodstein. That's WOOD-STEIN.ca. Yes, I just met him again and interviewed him, and he's still a healthy 97-year-old man. So, I mean, he's incredible. No one maintains like that. And his show, wow, the things you learn from that man. There's like if you have a cat, he's got some great cat tips for taking care of them. I mean, people should just be heading over to watch the Butch Haller show so they can redirect the focus of their lives. There's plenty to learn out there because this man, he's lived the life for you. He's written all the songs. So, I mean, people steal more songs from Butch than, you know.
I heard that. It's an unfortunate state of affairs.
It is, and I've seen where he lives. He's lived. Have you been to London, Ontario? There's this bar downtown, the Richmond Tavern, and there's a Richmond Hotel above it. And apparently now, Butch can only afford to live upstairs there, and he has to pay his rent by coming down the first Friday of every month to he falls down the stairs and gets up on the stage and plays a set, and I think that's how he pays his rent.
That's a heroic tale.
He's a heroic man.
London, I got dropped off in London on a bus hitching up to Godrich. So I didn't spend much time at all in London. I got there and I shot straight north. Now I want to talk. Listowel is where you're from, but you guys have been confused with London forever. I mean, there's a split that you were on that was London based. I was just wondering, what do you get from tying yourselves to London that maybe you don't get from little old Listowel?
London's got it's had quite a rich rock and roll history. It has, and Listowel hasn't. Listowel's kind of a shithole.
Right, tell me about interviewing. You said you interviewed Joey Shithead just earlier today. Now, I've been surprised at some of the guests that I've been able to tie down to this in the podcast. Has there been anybody that's kind of blown your mind as far as who you've got to interview?
You know, when I was still going to school and I interviewed Teenage Head, and then I went to their concert and kind of got special treatment with my camera, and I was able to get right up at the edge of the stage and be photographing them, and that was pretty fucking awesome.
Teenage Head, eh? Yeah, that would have really cool. Now, starting in the 90s, all you hear today from a lot of, I don't want to put you in the category of older punks, but we'll say fine, gentlemanly punks. You hear a lot of back and forth on the state of the scene and whether it's as violent as it should be. Did you ever have any violent occurrences in the early days?
yes. And not the I don't like the violence. I don't think. I mean, yeah. And if you watch that Butch Holler show, you see us going, "Oh, it should be all rougher and all that stuff." But I'm not sure we even really believe that. We were just talking around. Um, so the 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 thing is, yeah, it was rougher, and like even when I was first getting into it at the end of the '80s, um, there was like um, people like skinheads and stuff still, and they disappeared and then came back as like Proud Boys and stuff later on. But so they're not totally gone, but they were more part of the punk scene back then, and that kind of sucked, and I don't miss that. I don't miss like violent skinheads and people like that.
So, what do you think has been lost, if anything, that may have come from the early days and that sort of thing?
You know, I'm not exactly one who says we've lost much, and I think in a lot of ways, I'm good with the more inclusive world of today than like back when it was a bunch of us white guys who wanted our space to be assholes to each other, and now we're like we're boo-hooing because yeah, I'm not too upset. I don't think we've lost a lot.
How do you think we progressed?
I think I mean the world's got a long way to go, but I think the fact that we are seeing that we've got a long way to go, and we're trying to you know be more inclusive and better to each other. I think that's a really good thing, and yeah, I think yeah, it's just the I I don't know, but we have progressed, and we're at a better spot because we're um, you know inclusivity, diversity, uh, anti-racism. These are all good things. Being more acceptive of like LGBTQ plus people. Um, these are all good things, and I'm not gonna cry because some asshole from the '80s wants to still be able to talk shit.
No,
I mean, even in my lyrics, there's things I don't say anymore, or um, things that we've just moved away from because we know we don't care if they were a product of our time. We were assholes then, and we didn't realize it, and it's time to move on.
yeah, no, I was gonna say I no, I've seen you cover Holiday in Cambodia,
And I
and
wouldn't say that
yeah,
word.
and Family Man, and it always leads to a very awkward silence, and then the crowd. There's a few like moments. I remember that in Oshawa, and when you did the other one, I believe that was at Spider Fest, actually.
Uh, did we?
No, sorry, Family Man. I think that was in Barrie.
Waterloo,
Was
and you've
it?
seen it on video.
Okay, yeah. That's what I'm thinking of.
You weren't there.
That's correct now, yeah. The Incendiary Black Flag cover, I believe it was titled.
Yeah, and I just said something like, "Oh, Henry, we don't need to say that anymore."
So it's funny, like I agree with you, and everything should be more inclusive. See, Jello, he doesn't say that anymore when he plays live. I saw him in Montreal, and it was a great show. I don't know. Have you caught Jello live?
No, no, never actually. I'd love to still. He's like, but no, I haven't.
No, and still, I mean, Jello never short for words. He's always pumping something out. He's got tons of spoken word and different uh, writing outlets, and I know alternative tentacles. I'm wondering. I'm seeing the shirt. Who were some of the early influences when you were first getting into punk?
Um, well, Joel, and my brother, he listened to like a lot of the British bands, um, like Sex Pistols was one of the first things I heard. The Clash, uh, and then yeah, I found like the Buzzcocks and stuff more myself. And then um, in my brother's collection of records, because he was like 9 years older than I was, um, he had "In God We Trust" by the
Dead Kennedys.
yeah, and when I put that on, that record blew me away. Like it's especially side one, like 6 songs in like 5 minutes or whatever it is. Um, I hadn't heard anything like that before, and that was just amazing. So if you want to know why a lot of the Church on Acid songs are that short, it's probably because of that record. Because that was just fucking so exciting. And then I got things like Minor Threat, like the album that collected their first two uh, uh, 7 inches, and those were like that, and that was just really fucking exciting music for um, that time for me.
All right, we'll wrap up here shortly. I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I know it's getting late for you, and you're up past your bedtime. But
Now, right into it.
what do you want to? I know you said you want to get back into playing, and you've thought of a few ideas. What's left that you want to do before you kick the bucket musically? Are there new albums? Is there a certain show? What is it you would like to accomplish?
Um, I, I, what would musically? What would I like to
Yeah.
accomplish? I'd like to. I, I'd like to get uh, like an album that moves in like musically can be somewhat the same, but I think I'm a much better writer now than when I wrote a lot of that. So I'd like to write something more serious, not the like I think a lot of our old songs are misunderstood and stuff. Like some of the ones where I was more serious get seen as like jokey punk songs, and some of the ones where I wasn't serious get seen the opposite way. It's a whole mess, and I'd like to write something that's kind of, I don't know whether it's a real concept album or what, but just something that's kind of more a serious um, full project kind of that I don't know, goes in directions that uh, people wouldn't associate with Shelley on Acid, even if the music is still somewhat punky type of stuff. But then also because I just think the name is kind of synonymous with me. There's the other, like, it's available online. There's more weird ambient music that I've done under the Shelley on Acid name that actually gets quite a lot of downloads sometimes. I don't know how it gets found, but
What is that? Where is that? I don't think I've ever heard any of that.
music for just wait one quick second. I'll tell you what it's called, and the way I record it is really odd. Like, parts of it are all done with manipulated maracas and music for unwanted guests. It's an EP, and I love it. And no one else probably likes it. It's like 5 songs that are just messed up. It's available for download. It never got put on any vinyl or anything, and probably never will.
Your description of it just makes me think of Metal Machine music.
Yeah, it would be like that. And actually, it comes from my love of Pete Shelley, because he did album before he was even in the Buzzcocks. He invented a device. He didn't invent it. He made a device to make music that he figured out from some magazine or something that he read, and he recorded an album. I believe it's called Sky Zen or Sky Yen or something like that. And it's weird. It's just 2 long songs of like kind of Metal Machine music type stuff. And yeah, and so I did like 5 songs of this stuff, and I enjoy doing stuff like that. But the average Church on Acid fan probably doesn't like it as much. But you might. You're into weird stuff. You're probably not the average Church on Acid
I don't know. I think I am one of the peak Chachi on Acid fans. But no, another song that isn't the average Chachi on Acid song. You played it on a radio show. I've requested it live. You've never played it. We Could Have a Quiet Riot doing heroin. Why did that one get put out through Chachi on Acid when it is unorthodox for the band?
We recorded it in the studio. It was like just something that we were gonna put on as like the hidden track, and actually on like 100 CDs, or it came on 666 seconds after the album ended. Guess that's why I've always got the blues. If you get that on CD, it it has that on the end of it, and that's it was just recorded as and I mean it's partly a Queers cover and partly Quiet Riot, but without really. I think a few times some Quiet Riot riffs get tossed into the mix. But it was more just the name we were making fun of.
Was that the only radio show that you've got to play on when you did that acoustic set?
No, we played lots of radio shows. We played a couple radio shows up in Ottawa Live Music. We played in London tons of times, and yeah, but that one was not a radio show. The one you're talking about. It was just in the studio, like a real studio, where musicians go. We snuck in there.
Now, when you play on the radio, what are some of the go-tos for the radio scene, as you got to keep it a bit cleaner?
We weren't always good at keeping it clean. I mean, we tried to. That's how Hugs came about. Instead of get fucking fucked, that was us trying to be cleaner, and then we ended up mixing the two of them, which we love, going back and forth from the clean to the dirty. That's always a lot of fun.
All right, last question. When you got home from Spiderfest, what did the kids tell the missus about how that show went?
I think they, pretty much in not so many words, that was a fucked up experience.
I've never met your wife, but I feel close to her now.
My wife is awesome. So, yeah, I mean, she put up with a lot, but she's pretty good. So.
Kudos to her. Colin, thank you for joining me. I'm going to let you go here. Again, I look forward to anything that comes out from you in the future. As soon as you get jamming and back together, I want to know about it. If you guys are ever out on this side of the country, I've got.
I mean, that would be an excuse that would, if we end up getting, something set up out there, that's an excuse for us to pull it back together. So I don't know. It could happen.
Well, now you're in Joey Shithead's pocket.
I wouldn't say that. I interviewed him, but I don't think he's gonna jump right from an interview to putting me in his pocket. But he was a very pleasant man. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. You never know. Once they turn politicians, you never know.
That's true. I mean, on the other hand, that's when they really have to be more pleasant. And maybe, you never know. A lot of journalists, next step, politics. So maybe. Prime Minister Colin Burrowes, signing out.
Colin Burrowes for Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen.